How are you guys doing? It is Monday, September 14th, 2020, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to take you through yesterday's games. In particular, playoff basketball, Game 6, WNBA bubble, NHL hockey bubble, week 1 of NFL football, and of course, there was regular season baseball. As there's, I think there's less than 2 more weeks left in the MLB season, but I'm going to take you through that in a bit. Going through yesterday, I'm going to start with the NFL first because it was the first week of NFL football. After Thursday's games, after Thursday's matchup between the Chiefs and the Titans, there's only 4 teams that are left to play in week 1, but I'll take you through the games that were already played. First off, starting with the week 1 matchups. With the 1 o'clock games, the Seattle Seahawks were able to beat the Atlanta Falcons 38-25 to get their first win of the season. Russell Wilson, their elite quarterback, would finish with 322 yards, throwing for 4 touchdowns through the air, completing 31 of his 35 passes. He would also finish with 29 yards on the ground. He would lead the team in rushing. DK Metcalf would be the team's leading receiver with 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Lockett had 92 yards and 8 receptions. Looking at their defense, Jamal Adams would dominate. He finished with 12 total tackles on the day, one of them being a sack. He'd have 2.5 tackles for loss, and he'd just have an incredible game for the Seahawks in his debut. Just looking to the Atlanta Falcons on the offensive side of the ball. Matt Ryan is currently the NFL's passing yards leader after throwing for 450 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. It just simply wasn't enough. Todd Gurley, the Falcons' elite running back, was their leading rusher. He finished with 56 yards on 14 carries with a touchdown on the ground. For the Falcons, they had 3 receivers going for 9 receptions and over 100 yards. Russell Gage finished with 9 receptions for 114 yards. Calvin Ridley finished with 9 receptions and 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Atlanta Falcons' elite wide receiver, Julio Jones, would finish the game with 157 yards on 9 receptions. Looking on the defensive side of the ball, their linebacker, Deion Jones, would finish with 9 tackles on the day, one of them for loss. Grady Jarrett, their defensive tackle, would finish with 1.5 sacks and on 4 whole tackles on the day. With this win, the Seattle Seahawks are now 1-0, tied for the lead in the NFC West, as the Atlanta Falcons now drop to 0-1 in the NFC South. Going on to the next game, the Buffalo Bills would host the New York Jets, and Josh Allen would lead the way as the Buffalo Bills picked up their very first win of the season. They're now 1-0 as the Jets drop to 0-1. With the Jets, their quarterback Sam Darnold would throw for 215 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Jamison Crowder would be the biggest receiver on the New York Jets as he finished with 115 yards on 7 receptions and a touchdown. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, Marcus May would lead the way for them. He finished with 10 tackles and 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Big game for the New York Jets safety, but not much else going for the Jets defense. Jumping out now to Buffalo just to show you what's going on over there as they picked up their win. Josh Allen, their quarterback, finished completing 33 of his 46 passes for 312 yards for 2 touchdowns. He ran for 57 yards on the ground with another touchdown, so he had 3 touchdowns on the day. And Stephon Diggs would finish with 86 yards on the day as in his first day with the Buffalo Bills. Moving to the defense, not much craziness going on in their defense, but Taron Johnson will lead the way with with 5 tackles, and so would A.J. Klein. Matt Milano would have his first interception of the season. Like I said, with this win, the Buffalo Bills are now 1-0 as the New York Jets slip to 0-1. Next, moving on to the NFC North, the Chicago Bears are able to beat the Detroit Lions 27-23 to get their first win. This game went down to the wire. Detroit entered the 4th quarter literally winning 23-6, and the Bears still came back and won. Matt Stafford would finish the game throwing for 297 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Adrian Peterson finished with 93 yards on the ground and 14 carries, the 35-year-old future Hall of Fame running back. And their leading receiver was Danny Amendola with 81 yards on 5 receptions. Looking at their defense, Tracy Walker finished with 9 tackles and a couple tackles for loss. Jumping to the Chicago Bears, Mitchell Trubisky, their quarterback, would complete 20 of his 36 passes for 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. David Montgomery finished with 64 yards on the ground. Allen Robinson, the second, finished with 74 yards in the air on 5 receptions, and Anthony Miller had 76 yards on 4 receptions with a touchdown. Looking to the defensive side of the ball, Danny Trevathan finished with 7 tackles on the day. Akeem Hicks would finish with a sack and a tackle. We finished with a sack on the day. With this win, the Chicago Bears are 1-0, and the Detroit Lions are now 0-1 in the NFC North. Going to the other game of the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers were able to beat the Minnesota Vikings 43-34 in the highest scoring game of the day. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins would finish with 259 passing yards with 2 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook finished with 50 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns as well. Adam Thielen was their biggest receiver, finishing with 110 yards on 6 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And then out of their defensive players, Eric Kendricks would lead the team in tackles with 10 tackles. And jumping to Green Bay, their GOAT-level quarterback Aaron Rodgers would finish the day throwing for 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. Aaron Jones would have 66 rushing yards on the ground and a touchdown. Devontae Adams would be their biggest receiver. He finished with 156 yards on 14 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Big game for him. And then Christian Kirksey would finish with 12 tackles on the defensive side of the football. With this win, the Green Bay Packers are 1-0 after week 1, and the Minnesota Vikings are now 0-1. Like I said, Green Bay in the NFC North now tied with the Chicago Bears for the best record, and the Vikings tied with the Lions for the worst. Jumping out to the AFC East, the New England Patriots hosted and defeated the Miami Dolphins 21-11 in Cam Newton's first start with them. Starting with the Dolphins, their quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick would finish with 191 yards, throwing no touchdowns and 3 picks. Just looking at their defense, Jerome Baker would have a pretty good game on the defensive side. He finished with 16 total tackles, including a sack and a tackle for loss, but it just simply wasn't enough. Cam Newton would lead the way for the New England Patriots. Through the air, he threw for 155 yards, and he completed 15 of his 19 passes. And the elite running back would run for 75 yards on 15 carries and 2 touchdowns, and he would set a New England Patriots rushing yards record by a quarterback in this very first game. Julian Edelman would be the biggest receiver with 57 yards and 5 receptions. And on the defensive side of the ball, Adrian Phillips would finish with 9 total tackles, including 1 for loss. With this win, the New England Patriots are now 1-0, and the Miami Dolphins are now 0-1 after week 1 action. And jumping to Washington, the Washington football team was able to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles were leading 17-7 at halftime, and the Washington football team blanked them 20-0 in the second half to get this win. For the Eagles, their quarterback Carson Wentz would throw for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Their biggest receiver was Dallas Goedert, their tight end, who would finish with 101 yards on 8 receptions and a touchdown. And then just on the defensive side of the ball, Nathan Jerry would finish with 10 tackles, 2 of them for loss. It just simply wasn't enough. For Washington, Dwayne Haskins, their quarterback, would finish he finished throwing for 178 yards and a touchdown the day. Terry McLaurin would be their biggest receiver. He finished with 61 yards and 5 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, their rookie Chase Young would get a sack and a half in his very first game. He finished with 4 tackles on the day, and Matt Ioannidis would also finish with 4 tackles and 1.5 sacks. And John Bostic, their linebacker, finished with 8 tackles and one of them being a sack. The Washington football team is now 1-0 following this comeback, and the Philadelphia Eagles now dropped to 0-1. Moving out to Carolina, the Las Vegas Raiders were able to pick up their first win as the Las Vegas Raiders, beating them 34-30. For Carolina, they tried to come back in the fourth quarter, just simply wasn't enough. Terry Bridgewater would throw for 270 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey would finish with 93 yards on 23 carries and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also had 38 reception yards through the air. And then Shaq Thompson would finish with 12 tackles. He would be their best defensive performer, but it just wasn't enough. For the Raiders, their quarterback Derek Carr would throw for 239 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs on the ground finished with 93 yards and 25 carries and 3 touchdowns. And Henry Ruggs would be their biggest receiver in his debut for the team, finishing with 55 yards and 3 receptions. And Josh Jacobs did have 46 yards through the air for a combined 139 yards on the day and his 3 touchdowns. Big game for him. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, Jonathan Abram, their safety, would finish with 13 tackles on the day. Big win for the Raiders as they're now 1-0, and the Carolina Panthers now dropped to 0-1 on the season. Jumping out to Jacksonville, the Jaguars were able to beat the Colts in Game 1 and take a 1-0 series. season record in the NFL. Phillip Rivers in his debut with the Indianapolis Colts would throw for 363 yards, he threw a touchdown, and he also threw 2 picks. Not much going on the ground, but Paris Campbell would finish as the top receiver for the Colts with 71 yards and 6 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, their elite linebacker Darius Leonard would lead the team in tackles with 9 on the day. Jumping out to the Jaguars, Gardner Minshew, their quarterback, would throw for 173 yards. He completed 19 of his 20 passes, throwing for 3 touchdowns as well. James Robinson would finish with 62 yards on the ground, and the Jaguars just had a really, really good game. Keenan Cole Sr. was their leading receiver with 47 yards on 5 receptions and a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Josh Jones finished with 12 tackles, and Miles Jack finished with 11, including a sack. With this win, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 1-0, and the Indianapolis Colts are now 0-1 after week one action. Additionally, the reigning National Football League MVP, Lamar Jackson, would host the Cleveland Browns, and the Ravens would pretty much demolish them 38-6. For the Browns, their quarterback Baker Mayfield would finish with 189 yards, completing 21 of his 39 passes with a touchdown and an interception. Kareem Hunt would be their leading rusher with 72 yards and 13 carries, and Nick Chubb had 60 yards on 10. Jarvis Landry was their leading receiver with 61 yards and 5 receptions. Their elite receiver, Odell Beckham Jr., would finish the game with 22 yards on 3 receptions. On 10 targets, he had the most targets on the team. Not much going for him. And then on their defense, B.J. Goodwin would finish with 9 total tackles on the day. Their elite defensive end, Myles Garrett, would finish with a tackle, and that tackle was for a loss. Not much going for the Browns, but going to the Ravens. Their elite quarterback, Lamar Jackson, would finish. He would complete 20 of his 25 passes for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. He would also run for 45 yards on 7 carries on the ground. He was their leading passer and their leading rusher, combining for 320 yards of complete offense. Marquise Brown would be their leading receiver with 101 yards and 5 receptions. Mark Andrews, their tight end, would finish with 58 yards and 5 receptions and 2 touchdowns in the air. Patrick Queen would lead the team in tackles with 8 total tackles on the day. He also had a sack. With this win, the Baltimore Ravens are 1-0 on the season, as the Cleveland Browns are now 0-1 following week 1 action. Staying out with the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals hosted the Los Angeles Chargers and lost 16-3. Mainly because they weren't able to get a field goal to tie it up in the 4th. Really sad game. But Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, in his debut after being the number 1 overall pick out of LSU, he finished the game throwing for 193 yards with a pick. Joe Mixon would run for 69 yards on the ground. Joe Burrow had 46 yards on the ground and a touchdown, his first career touchdown. AJ Green, the Cincinnati Bengals elite wide receiver, would lead them in receiving yards. He'd finish with 51 yards on 5 receptions for the day. On the defensive side, Jermaine Pratt would finish with 12 tackles, and Josh Bynes would finish with a sack as one of his 8 tackles, but it just wasn't enough. For the Chargers, Tyrod Taylor would get the win. He'd throw for 208 yards on the day. Austin Eckler would be their leading rusher with 84 yards on the ground. Josh Kelly finished with 60 yards on 12 carries and a touchdown. Hunter Henry would be their leading receiver with 73 yards and 5 receptions. And going to the defensive side of the ball, Casey Hayward Jr., their corner, I believe, will lead the team in tackles as he finished the game with 12 tackles on the day. Big game for him, and Melvin Ingram III would pick up their first interception of the season. With this win, the Los Angeles Chargers are now 1-0 as the Cincinnati Bengals start their season off 0-1 in the AFC North. Just staying out there, just getting a quick look into what to look out for. Also, out of these games, the New Orleans Saints were able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 34-23 to get their first win of the season. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their GOAT-level quarterback, Tom Brady, finished throwing for 239 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Through the air, Chris Godwin would finish with 79 yards and 6 receptions. Rob Gronkowski, their tight end, would finish with 11 yards and 2 receptions. And their elite wide receiver, Mike Evans, would finish with 2 yards on 1 reception. And that 1 reception led to a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of the ball, just looking to see what's going on there, their linebacker Levante David would finish with 11 tackles. Their rookie linebacker, or their second-year linebacker Devin White, would finish with 11 tackles on the day as well, 2 of them for loss. Jumping out to New Orleans Saints, their GOAT-level quarterback Drew Brees with over 160 yards and 2 touchdowns as he completed 80 of his 30 passes. Through the air, Jared Cook will be their leading receiver with 80 yards and 5 receptions. Their elite wide receiver, Michael Thomas, would finish with 17 yards on 3 receptions and 5 targets for them. And just looking at their defense, C.J. Gardner-Johnson would finish with 10 tackles on the day. DeMario Davis finished with 6 tackles, including a sack. With that said, the New Orleans Saints are now 1-0 in the NFC South as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drop to 0-1, with the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers giving the New Orleans Saints the sole lead. And following that, I'm gonna jump to San Francisco. The Arizona Cardinals were able to beat the defending NFC champs 24-20 in San Francisco yesterday after scoring 2 touchdowns in the fourth to give them the lead. For the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo would finish throwing for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert would run 56 yards and 15 carries on the ground, and he would have 95 yards and 4 receptions and a touchdown through the air. George Kittle, their tight end, would finish with 44 yards and 4 receptions. And looking at their defense, Emmanuel Mosley would finish with 15 tackles on the day, and half of them being for loss. Their elite defensive end, Nick Bosa, would finish with 6 tackles on the day as well. Jumping to Arizona, their young quarterback, Kyler Murray, would finish with 230 yards through the air with a touchdown and an interception. And he also ran 91 yards on the ground with 13 carries and an additional touchdown. He had a combined 321 yards on the day with 2 touchdowns. Great game for him. Through the air, their elite wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, would finish with 151 yards and 14 receptions. And their future Hall of Famer, Larry Fitzgerald, would throw for 34 yards. He would have 34 reception yards on 4 receptions. And looking at their defense, Budda Baker would lead the team in tackles. Their safety would finish with 15 total tackles on the day. Just a good game overall for him. With this win, the Arizona Cardinals are 1-0 in the NFC West, and the defending champs, San Francisco 49ers, are now 0-1 after having the best record in the NFC last year. And the last game of last night, on Monday night, the Los Angeles Rams hosted the Dallas Cowboys in their new stadium in Los Angeles and were able to beat them 20-17. To give the Cowboys their first loss of the season. Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, would throw for 266 yards with a touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott, the Dallas Cowboys elite running back, would finish with 96 yards and 22 carries in a touchdown on the day. Amari Cooper would be their leading receiver with 81 yards on 10 receptions. Ezekiel Elliott also had 31 yards through the air with a touchdown, finishing the day with over 125 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. For their defense, Aldon Smith and Jalen Smith would both finish with 11 tackles on the day, as I think Dallas had a pretty good defensive day. Their offense just wasn't getting it going. For the Rams, their quarterback Jared Goff would finish with 275 yards with an interception on the day. Malcolm Brown would pick up 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. Robert Woods would be the Rams' leading receiver with 105 yards and 6 receptions. And on their defense, Jordan Fuller would lead the way with 8 tackles. And Leonard Floyd would get a sack along with Michael Brockers. With this win, the Los Angeles Rams are now 1-0 in the NFC West, and the Dallas Cowboys now drop to 0-1 in the NFC East. But that's everything that happened with football yesterday. Looking forward to today. Starting at 7:15, the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the New York Giants on ESPN. And following that, the Tennessee Titans will take on the Denver Broncos to conclude Week 1 action in the NFL. With that said, I'm going to jump into the NBA to show you the one game that happened there. And in Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals between the 2-seed Los Angeles Clippers and the 3-seed Denver Nuggets, the Nuggets were able to win their second straight game of the series to tie the series up at 3 and force a Game 7 against the Los Angeles Clippers. For the Los Angeles Clippers, off the bench, Lou Williams would finish with 14 points in 24 minutes as he shot 5 for 11 from the field and added 3 steals. Their power forward, Josh Green, added 11 points and 2 rebounds. Sixth man of the year, Montrezl Harrell would finish with 5 points and a rebound and assist in 15 minutes. Out of their starters, it would mainly be between Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. For the Los Angeles Clippers, their GOAT level small forward, Kawhi Leonard, would finish with 25 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block in 41 minutes. He shot 8 for 18 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and 6 for 7 from the line. And Paul George, their other elite small forward, would finish with 33 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 steals, and a block as he shot 9 for 21 from the field in 39 minutes. He shot 4 for 9 from 3, and he made all 11 of his free throw attempts. It just wasn't enough. The Denver Nuggets were able to bring it back. Starting off their bench, Monte Morris, their point guard off the bench, finished with 10 points, 4 assists in 16 minutes. Michael Porter Jr., their forward off the bench, would finish with 13 points and 7 rebounds as he shot 4 for 7, 3 for 6 from 3 in 27 minutes played. Looking at their starters, their elite center, Nikola Jokic would have the best performance of the night for the Denver Nuggets. He finished with 34 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, and a block as he shot 13 for 22 from the field in 40 minutes. He shot 4 for 6 from 3 and 4 for 5 from the line in a very sensational playoff performance, which may define his NBA career in the years to come. Their point guard, Jamal Murray, would finish with 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists as he shot 9 for 13 from the field. And their shooting guard, Gary Harris, would finish with 16 points, 4 assists, and 4 steals as he shot 5 for 11 from the field for the Denver Nuggets. With this win, they will force a Game 7, which will be played tomorrow. But with that said, not much else going on in the NBA. The next game that picks up is on Tuesday, and that'll be Game 1 of the Heat and the Celtics, and that'll be Game 7 for the Nuggets and the Clippers. So that's a lot to look forward to. But of course, I'll get into that tomorrow. Jumping into the WNBA bubble, just to show you what's going on with that. Jumping on to the scores, the Dallas Wings beat the New York Liberty 82-79, and the Liberty are now 2-20 to start the season. Marina Mabrey would finish with 24 points as she led the way. The Las Vegas Aces beat the Seattle Storm, and both teams are now 18-4. Dearica Hamby finished with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists. And Jewel Lloyd had 30 points for the Storm, but the Aces were able to edge them out by 2 in the final seconds. And then the Washington Mystics, led by Ariel Atkins' 26 points, were able to beat the Atlanta Dream 85-78 to jump out to 9-13 on the season. And also for the WNBA, there's going to be no games today as well because with the way their bubble's working, the way their season was scheduled. Jumping out to hockey, just to give you a little quick update as to what's going on in that bubble because there's still a lot going on over there. And in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Stanley Cup Finals, the Tampa Bay Lightning would beat the New York Islanders 4-1 after scoring 2 goals in both the second and third period. Brad Point, the Tampa Bay center, would finish with a goal and assist. And with this win, the Tampa Bay Lightning are now 1 game away from clinching a spot in the Stanley Cup Finals as they lead the New York Islanders 4-1. After, I believe, the Islanders were able to get the win in the last game, the Lightning were able to jump back up, and now, like I said, they are now 1 game away, and the Islanders are going to have to win out if they want to advance to the next round. Jumping to today, just to look forward to what's going on, it'll be Game 5 of the Western Conference Stanley Cup Finals as the Dallas Stars take on the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Dallas currently leads that series 3-1 as the Golden Knights are the number 1 seed out west. So that'll be I'm very curious as to see how that game is going to pan out. And then last but not least, just to look at just the big soccer matches as of yesterday, just the ones to look forward to because there was MLS and just some of the big games are starting to come back for soccer as well because it was a very action-packed day of sports. And I feel like the only notable performance is that PSG lost to Marseille. 1-0 after 3 of their players were red carded and 2 of them Marseille's were. Tobin will get the only goal of the game in the 31st minute, but that was the only really high-profile matchup that really happened yesterday. There was a club friendly with Juventus where Cristiano Ronaldo did score, but not much really happened. And then just looking forward to today, Chelsea's looking to get their first game of the English Premier League as they face off against Brighton and Hove Alberton. And also Borussia Dortmund is going to play in the Deutsche Football Pokal, which is the German domestic league or their domestic tournament. But with that said, I'm going to jump into baseball to finish off the episode because there was a lot of great baseball played yesterday. First, I'm going to start off in the Central because I don't do that as often as I would like to. Starting off in Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals hosted the Pirates and were able to blank them 11-0 behind Brad Keller's 4th win of the season. He would pitch a complete game, by the way. He would allow no earned runs, striking out 2 batters in 9 innings pitched. As like I said, the Pittsburgh Pirates are only able to get 5 hits off of him total in the game. Looking at the Kansas City batters, their right fielder Whit Merrifield would finish the game 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run. Hunter Dozier hit his 6th home run of the season as the first baseman finished 3 for 3 with an RBI and 3 runs on the day. And also their catcher Salvador Perez would finish 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. Big game for him with this win. The Kansas City Royals are now 20-28 as the Pittsburgh Pirates dropped to 14-30. Jumping out to Minnesota, the Twins hosted the Cleveland Indians and were able to beat them 7-5 behind Tyler Bauer's second win. Tristan McKenzie picked up his first loss this season. He's now 2-1. He would allow 5 earned runs in 4 innings pitched, striking out 7. Pineda would pick up the start for Minnesota, but he wouldn't pitch 5 full innings. But they would eventually turn it back around and just drop a bunch of runs between the 3rd and the 6th inning. All 7 of their runs, actually. For the Cleveland Indians, their elite shortstop Francisco Lindor would finish 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs. Their second baseman Cesar Hernandez would finish the day 3 for 5 with a run as well. Their third baseman Jose Ramirez finished 2 for 5. Carlos Santana, their first baseman, finished 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs. For the Minnesota Twins, their designated hitter Nelson Cruz finished 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs. He hit his 16th home run of the season, which tied him for the major league lead. And their second baseman Marwin Gonzalez finished 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run. With this win, the Minnesota Twins have eclipsed 30 wins. They're now 30-18 on the season, as the Cleveland Indians are now 26-21 on the season. Jumping out to the last AL Central matchup, the Chicago White Sox hosted the Detroit Tigers and beat them 5-2 to pick up their 30th win of the season as well. Cordero would pick up his first win as Turnbull picked up his 3rd loss. Turnbull would allow 5 earned runs for them as he pitched 5 innings and struck out 5 batters. For the Detroit Tigers, both of their RBIs came from their left fielder, Jorge Bonifacio. He would finish 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs on the day. He had an RBI in the 1st and in the 9th inning. For the Chicago White Sox, their shortstop, Tim Anderson, would finish 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their left fielder, Eloy Jimenez, would finish 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 13th home run of the season. And their third baseman, Yohan Moncada, would finish 3 for 4 with an RBI as well. With this win, the Chicago White Sox are 30-16, and the Detroit Tigers now drop to 20-26. Jumping out to Cubs Brewers, Alec Mills would pick up a complete game, not only a complete game shutout, but he would throw the second no-hitter of the season, the second no-hitter by a Chicago team as they beat the Milwaukee Brewers 12-0. And of course, Christian Yelich would finish 0 for 3 on the day. Not much going for him, and Hauser would get the start. He would allow 2 earned runs in 4 innings pitched and 7 total runs. Just not a lot going for them. For the Chicago Cubs, their elite shortstop Javi Baez would finish 1 for 5 with 2 runs on the day. Bodie, their third baseman, finished 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run, as well as he hit his 6th home run of the season. Jason Hayward, their right fielder, finished 2 for 3 with an RBI and 3 runs. Just a lot going on for them. And their catcher Caratini would go 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. And Alec Mills would pitch his first career no-hitter. In 9 innings, he would allow no hits, no earned runs. He'd walk 3 batters, and he would strike out 5 for the complete game. With this win, the Chicago Cubs are now 28-20 in the NL Central, and the Milwaukee Brewers dropped to 20-24. Moving on to St. Louis, the St. Louis Cardinals hosted the Reds and lost. The Reds came and beat them 10-5. Not much crazy starting pitching going on, but moving on for the Cardinals, their elite first baseman Paul Goldschmidt would finish 1 for 4 on the day as he walked once. Their third baseman Matt Carpenter would finish 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs as he had a pretty good game, but the Cincinnati Reds would just have a better one. Their third baseman Eugenio Suarez would finish 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run. As he hit his 13th home run of the season. Brian Goodwin would finish 1 for 2 with an RBI and 2 runs. He hit his 5th home run of the season as he's in his very short and brief stint with the Cincinnati Reds so far. With this win, the Reds are now 21-26 as the St. Louis Cardinals now drop to 20-20. Moving out to the West, just to take you through what's going on out there. I'll start with the Texas Rangers series as they host, or the Texas Rangers game. They host the Oakland Athletics, and the Oakland Athletics lost as Lance Lynn picked up his 6th win of the season. He's now 6-2 on the season. Frankie Montas would pick up his 4th loss this season as he is now 3-4. Lance Lynn would allow 1 earned run in 7 innings pitched, striking out 10 batters for the day. Big win for him, like I just said. Not much going for the Oakland A's. Moving out to Texas, their second baseman, Rougned Odor, would finish 1-for-4 with 3 RBIs and a run. He would hit his 6th home run of the season. Big game for him. And then Isaiah Kiner-Falefa would finish 2-for-4 with a run. And their catcher, Jeff Mathis, would finish 1-for-3 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit his second home run of the season as the Texas Rangers win their 17th win of the season. They're now 17-30. With this loss, the A's are now 29-17. And here's something for scope: the Rangers are 17-30. Lance Lynn has won 6 of those games, and pitchers usually don't pick up wins in all of their starts, and that's pretty impressive. Jumping out to Colorado. The Colorado Rockies hosted the Los Angeles Angels and lost as the Angels scored 4 of their 5 runs in the last 3 innings to eventually overcome and win this game over the Rockies. It would be Heaney with the win as he allowed only 3 earned runs in 7 innings pitched, striking out 8. Looking out to Colorado, their right fielder Charlie Blackmon finished 2-for-4 with an RBI in the day. Their elite third baseman Nolan Arenado would not play, but for the Los Angeles Angels, their GOAT level center fielder Mike Trout would finish 0-for-3 with 2 walks on the day. Their first baseman, Jared Walsh, coming off an incredible performance the day before. He finished 2-for-5 with an RBI and a run. And Albert Pujols did his 4th home run of the season. He'd hit a historic one. The future Hall of Fame designated hitter would finish 1-for-3 with 2 RBIs and a run. He would hit a home run in the 8th inning to tie himself at 660 career home runs with Willie Mays. And that, like I said, very historic home run. And the next home run he hits, he will move into sole possession of the 4th most home runs in MLB history. Jumping out to Arizona, the Arizona Diamondbacks hosted the Seattle Mariners, and the Mariners beat them 7-3. Dunn would get the start, but he wouldn't pitch more than 2 innings. Jared Weaver would pick up his 7th loss of the season. He's now 1-7. Looking at how the Diamondbacks did as a team, their third baseman, Josh Van Meter, would finish 2-for-4 with an RBI. He'd be the only player with more than a hit. But their second baseman, Miguel Rojas, would finish with 2 runs as well on the day for the Diamondbacks. For the Mariners, their left fielder, Marmoleos, would finish 2-for-3 with an RBI and a run. He had a pretty good game yesterday. And with this win, the Seattle Mariners are now 21-25 as the Arizona Diamondbacks drop to 17-31 in the NL West. Jumping out to San Diego, the San Diego Padres hosted the Giants for a doubleheader. And the first game, the Padres were able to blank the Giants 6-0 as Mike Clevenger picked up his 3rd win of the season. Clevenger would allow no earned runs, pitching all 7 innings, striking out 7 batters as he pitched a complete game. Cueto would get the start for the Giants. He picked up his first loss of the season. He's now 2-1. He would allow 4 earned runs, 6 runs total, and he would strike out 2 in a little over 5 innings pitched. For the Giants, not much going for them before the San Diego Padres on the offensive side of the baseball. Their elite shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., would finish 0-for-3 with a strikeout. Their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, would finish 1-for-3 with a run on the day. Their right fielder, Will Myers, would finish 1-for-3 with 2 RBIs. And Greg Garcia, their designated hitter, finished 1-for-3 with 2 RBIs on the day. With this win, the San Diego Padres carried that momentum into the second game, where they were able to beat the San Francisco Giants 3-1. Hill would get his 3rd win of the season as Garrett Richards got the start. The only RBI would come from Mike Yastrzemski as he finished 1-for-3. For the San Diego Padres, their lead shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., finished 0-for-3. He wouldn't get a single hit on the day. He'd strike out once. Their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, would finish 2-for-3 with an RBI. With both of these wins, the San Diego Padres are now 31-17 with the 2nd most wins in the National League. And with both these losses, the San Francisco Giants went from 23-22 to 23-24. 1 game above 500 to 1 game below. Last game of the night out west, the Los Angeles Dodgers hosted the Houston Astros and beat them 8-1 after a 4-run 5th inning and a 3-run 8th to even up the series at 2. Zach Greinke would pick up his 2nd loss for the Houston Astros. He would allow 5 earned runs in 5 innings pitched, with striking out 3 batters. A lot of pitchers pitched for the Dodgers, but Kenley Jansen would close it. For the Houston Astros, their elite third baseman, Alex Bregman, would finish 1-for-4 on the day. Not much going for them as George Springer finished 1-for-4 with an RBI and a run. He hit a as he hit his 9th home run in the 6th inning, the only run of the day for the Astros. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, their elite right fielder Mookie Betts would finish 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit his 15th home run of the season, which is, I think, the National League lead, but I'm not completely sure, or he's very close to it if he doesn't have it. The left fielder A.J. Pollock would hit his 10th home run of the season as he finished 1 for 4 with an RBI. Will Smith, their catcher, finished 2 for 4 with a run. So did their elite first baseman, Cody Bellinger. He would finish 2 for 4 with a strikeout, and he also finished the run on the day. Their second baseman, Chris Taylor, would have a pretty good game as he finished 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. Chris Taylor would also hit his 5th home run of the season. With this win, the Los Angeles Dodgers now jump out to the league to a league best 33 wins. They're now 33-14, as the Houston Astros drop to 23-24 on the season following this loss. Last but not least, I'm gonna take you out east as the Washington Nationals, the defending champs, hosted the Atlanta Braves, who lead the National League East. The Braves were able to get the best of them, beating them 8-4, as GOAT level pitcher Max Scherzer would pick up his 3rd loss of the season. He would allow 6 earned runs in over 5 innings pitched, striking out 10 batters as his ERA jumped to 4.04 on the season. For the Nationals, their elite left fielder Juan Soto would finish 1 for 4 with a run as he walked. Not much going for them. Their second baseman, Their second baseman Luis Garcia would finish the day 2 for 3 with a run. And jumping out to the Braves, Kyle Wright would pick up his first win for them as he would allow 3 earned runs, 4 runs total in 6 innings pitched, striking out 4 batters. Their elite center fielder, Ronald Acuna Jr., would go 0 for 5 as he struck out 4 times. The Braves' elite first baseman, Freddie Freeman, would finish 2 for 3 with 2 runs, and he walked twice. Continuing their right fielder, Nick Markakis would finish 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their elite second baseman, Ozzie Albies, would finish 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 3rd home run of the season. And Adam Duvall, their left fielder, would hit his 14th home run of the season as he finished 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. With this win, the Atlanta Braves are 28-19 as they hold the best record in the National League East. As with this loss, the Washington Nationals, the defending champions, are now 17-28 with the worst record in the National League East. Staying out in the National League, the Miami Marlins hosted the Philadelphia Phillies for a doubleheader and beat them 2-1 in the first game. Behind Sixto Sanchez's complete game, he would allow 1 earned run in 7 innings pitched, striking out 4 batters. And then for the Marlins, their left fielder, Corey Dickerson, would finish 1 for 3 with an RBI, and Starling Marte would finish 1 for 3 with an RBI. Carrying this momentum into the second game, the Marlins were able to beat the Phillies in the second game as well. Garrett would pick up the win as he pitched 5 innings, allowing 1 earned run, striking out 6 batters. Their center fielder, Starling Marte, would finish 3 for 4 with 2 runs. Their first baseman, Jesus Aguilar, would finish 2 for 3 with the 2 RBIs and a run. With both of these wins, the Miami Marlins are now 23-21. And just looking out for the Phillies, their elite designated hitter, Bryce Harper, would finish 1 for 3 in the second game. And in the first game, he played right field and he would finish 0 for 3. So not much going for the Phillies yesterday, but following the doubleheader, the Miami Marlins are now 23-21 at second place in the National League East, and half a game behind them are the 23-22 now Philadelphia Phillies after losing both games of that doubleheader. Of course, staying out in the National League, the New York Mets were hosted by the Toronto Blue Jays and were able to beat them 7-3 yesterday. Hyun-Jin Ryu picked up his 4th win of the season as he tossed a complete gem. Starting out with the Mets, Peterson would pick up his 2nd loss of the season as he allowed 2 earned runs in 5 innings pitched, striking out 2. Looking at the Mets, their right fielder Michael Conforto would finish 2 for 5 with a run. Their third baseman Todd Frazier would finish 2 for 4 with an RBI. Their left fielder Dominic Smith would finish 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Their elite first baseman Pete Alonso would finish 1 for 4. Looking at to Toronto, Hyun-Jin Ryu would allow 1 earned run in 6 innings pitched, striking out 7 batters. Their elite first baseman Vlad Guerrero Jr. finished 0 for 3 with a run on the day. Gurriel Jr. finished 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. As he hit his 7th home run of the season. Lourdes Gurriel is having a pretty good season as well. With this win, the Toronto Blue Jays are 26-20 in the American League East, and the New York Mets now drop to 21-26 in the National League. Jumping out to the American League to finish off, the New York Yankees hosted and beat the Baltimore Orioles 3-1 as Zach Britton would pick up his first win. Arnoldus Chapman picked up his 2nd save of the year. For the New York Yankees, their pitcher, J.A. Happ, would only allow 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched, striking out 5. And for the Yankees, they would have a pretty big game. Clint Frazier, their right fielder, would finish 2 for 4 with a run. Gleyber Torres, their elite pinch hitter, would finish 1 for 1 with 2 RBIs. With this win, the New York Yankees are 26-21 as they're starting to get their winning mojo back. And with this loss, the Baltimore Orioles are now 20-26. Last game I'll mention, the Tampa Bay Rays hosted the Boston Red Sox, and the Red Sox were able to get their 17th win of the season, beating the Rays 6-3 behind Perez's 3rd win of the season. Their starting pitcher, Martin Perez, would only allow 2 earned runs, 3 runs total, as he struck out 6 batters in 5 innings pitched. Charlie Morton would allow 3 earned runs, striking out 4 in his 4 innings pitched. For the Rays, not much going. Their second baseman, Brousseau, would finish 2 for 5 with an RBI. And their catcher, Kevin Smith, would finish 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run. For Boston, their right fielder Munoz would finish 2 for 5 with 2 runs. Their catcher Christian Vasquez would finish 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. He hit his 5th home run of the season. They had a lot going for them. And with their second baseman Arroyo, he'd finished 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. And their third baseman Rafael Devers finished 3 for 5 with an RBI. With this win, the Red Sox are now 17-31. The Tampa Bay Rays are now 30-17. Really quickly, I'm going to look through the standings real quick before we look forward to the games for next week. Because it is Monday, I'll start off in the American League East. The Tampa Bay Rays currently have the best record in the AL East with a 30-17 record. 3.5 games behind them are the 26-20 Toronto Blue Jays. Half a game behind the Toronto Blue Jays, the 26-21 New York Yankees, who are 4 games behind the Tampa Bay Rays. 5.5 games behind the Yankees are the 20-26 Baltimore Orioles, who are 9.5 games behind the Rays and in last place. 4 games behind the Orioles, 13.5 games behind the Rays are the 17-31 Boston Red Sox, just chilling, sitting at the bottom. In the American League Central, the Chicago White Sox have the best record with a 30-16 record. A full game behind them are the 30-18 Minnesota Twins. 3.5 games behind the Twins are the 26-21 Cleveland Indians, who are 4.5 games behind the Chicago White Sox. 5.5 games behind the Indians are the 20-26 Detroit Tigers, who are 10 games behind. And a game behind them are the Kansas City Royals, who are 20-28, who are 11 games behind the Chicago White Sox. And jumping out to the American League West, the Oakland A's have the best record in that division with a 29-17 record. 6.5 games behind them are the 23-24 Houston Astros. A game and a half behind them are the Seattle Mariners, who are now 8 games behind the Oakland A's. 2 games behind the Seattle Mariners are the 20-28 Los Angeles Angels, who are 10 games behind the Oakland A's. And 2.5 games behind them are the 17-30 Texas Rangers, who are tied with the Boston Red Sox for the least amount of wins in the American League so far. They're 12.5 games behind the first place Oakland A's with 2 weeks left, so they're almost eliminated. Jumping out to the National League East, the Atlanta Braves have the best record in that division with a 28-19 record. 3.5 games behind them are the 23-21 Miami Marlins after beating the Philadelphia Phillies in both games of their doubleheader. Half a game behind them are the 23-22 Philadelphia Phillies, who are now out of the wild card after losing both games in their doubleheader. They're 4 games behind the Atlanta Braves. 3 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets, who are 21-26, who are sitting 7 games behind the Atlanta Braves. 3 games behind them and sitting in last are the defending champions, the defending Major League champions, Washington Nationals, as they're sitting at 17-28, 10 games behind the first place Atlanta Braves. And the National League Central, the Chicago Cubs lead that division with a 28-20 record. 4 games behind them are the 20-20 St. Louis Cardinals, who they're sitting in second in the National League Central. 2 games behind them are the Milwaukee Brewers, who are 20-24. Half a game behind the Brewers are the 21-26 Cincinnati Reds, who are 6.5 games behind the Cubs. And 5.5 games behind them are the 14-30 Pittsburgh Pirates, who have the least amount of wins in all of the Major League total combined. They sit 12 games behind the first place Chicago Cubs with 2 weeks left to play. In the National League West, the Los Angeles Dodgers lead that division outright, and they have the best record in the Major League with a 33-14 record. Behind them are the 2.5 games behind them are the 31-17 San Diego Padres, who have the second best record in the National League so far. It looks like 7.5 games behind them are the 23-24 San Francisco Giants. A game and a half behind them are the 21-25 Colorado Rockies, who are 11.5 games behind the Dodgers now. And 5 games behind them, sitting in last place, are the 17-31 Arizona Diamondbacks, who are now 16.5 games behind the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League West. And without further ado, I'm going to take you through the scores real quickly in terms of what to look forward to in today's matchups. Because today is Monday and they are starting a new series, so here's what to look forward to. Trevor Bauer is looking to get his 5th win of the season, and whenever Trevor Bauer pitches, it's always kind of gold, as the Reds take on the Pirates in the first game of their doubleheader at 4:10. Continuing on along those lines, Kwang Hyun Kim looks to get his 3rd win, as he's had an amazing start for the St. Louis Cardinals so far, as he has a sub-1 ERA so far. Continuing on, Marco Gonzalez looks to get the start for the Mariners against the Athletics, as Jesus Luzardo will get the start for them. That's game 1 of their doubleheader. And also, Tuki Toussaint is going to face off against Jorge Lopez as the Atlanta Braves take on the Baltimore Orioles at 7:35. Jose Barrios and the Minnesota Twins look to get the start again, look to take on Dylan Cease and the Chicago White Sox, as Jose Barrios has been heating up as of late. Corbin Burns looks to get his 4th win of the season. He's now 3-0 as the Milwaukee Brewers starting pitcher, as he'll take on the Cardinals in the doubleheader game 2. And jumping out to the last game of the night, GOAT-level pitcher Clayton Kershaw is going to lead the Los Angeles Dodgers against Dinelson Lamet of the San Diego Padres. Both pitchers are pitching incredibly well this season, and that's going to be a well-anticipated match. But with that said, I really appreciate everyone for listening to all 45 minutes of this. Yesterday was probably one of the most action-packed days of sports that I've ever seen. It's kind of rare where you get to see basketball, football, and baseball on the same day. And just very important games too. It is just... With that said, I really appreciate you guys for hearing my piece out. This is The Elite. It is Monday, September 14th, 2020. I'm James Sims, and I'm wishing everyone well. Once again, thank you for listening to my piece, and peace out.